Hi everyone, I'm Carl and I hope you're all doing great. In the last few days, I've been experimenting with ways of making more interesting components out of cardboard by layering the material, and in this video I'll be going over 2 uses for layering which turn out great results. One thing I like about these parts is that they're a lot stronger and heavier than the same volume of XPS foam, so I am a lot more confident about them surviving the gaming table. However, you can also use the same technique with XPS or foam board if you want to. First up, let's make some windows. I wanted to make some Gothic arches with 2 windows in each arch. For these, I made 3 templates using the same system I showed in my previous video. These are all equilateral arches. One of them is for the general outline of the arch, while the other 2 are for the openings in the wall. The last 2 are only half templates. The reason for this is simple. I originally made a full template, but the part running down the center was too thin and flexible to trace. The half templates allow you to trace one side, flip the template over, and trace the other side. One thing I found useful was to add these notches to the center of the template. This lets you line it up perfectly with the center line of the tracing when it's flipped over. In hindsight, I should also have added the notches to the sides so I could line it up on both axes, but the features in the template allowed me to do that anyway. Cutting this out freehand is simpler than it looks. Just use a sharp blade and go slow. I used a steel ruler to help with the straight edges. To avoid overcutting, I started in the corners and cut towards the middle of the line. Then I went to the other corner and cut back towards the middle. To cut curves freehand, I found it easiest to turn the sheet so that the curve was away from me, and cutting left to right. I'm right-handed, so if you're a lefty, you'll probably want to go right to left. Other than that, go slow and make shallow cuts. I tried to keep my head directly over the work so I could see the curve at all points. This also blocked out the light so I could see the pencil line more clearly. Okay, once all the parts have been cut, just glue them together. I used PVA glue here, though I would suggest using a brush instead of doing what I'm doing here. Much cleaner. PVA glue works better than hot glue here because it leaves less of a gap between the layers. Here I was trying to get the tops and the sides to line up as neatly as possible. I was less concerned about the bottom edges as these will be buried in basing material and debris when I put this together. Once the pieces are glued, stick them between 2 layers of baking paper, put something flat on them, and put something heavy on top of that. Warping will not be so much of a problem here as the layers of glue will mostly counteract each other, but the weight will make sure that all the parts are in contact. Of course, you can add as many layers as you like to make your piece more detailed. You can also mix in different materials or thicknesses of card, so go wild. But this window is enough for my project. Okay, let's jump into a different use of this layering system. But before that, maybe consider hitting the like button if you find this video useful. If you enjoy this kind of content, you might want to subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like it. For my project, I wanted some buttresses and ribs to go between my window arches. Now, if you have a hot wire cutter, it's really easy to cut XPS or foam boards to this shape, but I don't. Besides, not everyone has access to XPS, so I tried to make this out of card. What I did was to use the same layering system, but this time I used the same template throughout to make the piece thicker. Now, this is super rigid and it's got a nice weight to it, which is a definite plus. You can also sand it to clean up the sides. However, one thing that I can't do to it is texture it with a pen, like I did on my previous cardboard builds. The edges are too saturated with glue for that. I might try to carve it, but I'm still considering my options. I knew I wanted to have a small pillar in the recess here, so I added in a piece of plastic straw. This caused some fun comments on the Tabletop Crafters Guild on Facebook, as it does look a lot like a spirit level or some kind of bong. I'm sure it will make more sense once it's painted, but in the meantime, here's a special shout out to Tim and Cody from the guild. Thanks to their input, the project will now be called The Shrine of Saint Bertruda the Stoned. And that's it for this video. 2 ways of creating interesting components out of super cheap, easily available materials and tools. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop me a comment below. In the meantime, I'll be off building a bunch more pieces. Stay safe, take care, and see you around.